Have you ever watched someone act like you never existed, while secretly hoping your silence would break? That's the game. She ghosted you. Maybe she pulled back slowly, stopped replying, stopped calling, started posting more, but said less to you. She pretends to be fine, pretends she's unbothered, pretends like you were just another name in her contacts. But here's the part no one tells you. Her performance is fueled by your silence. She doesn't want to admit it, but it's gnawing at her. Every day that passes without a text, without a call, without even a passive-aggressive story from you, she feels it. Because your silence is louder than any message, louder than any confrontation. You didn't explode, you didn't plead, you didn't try to get closure. And that calm, unreactive energy, that's what hits her the hardest. Women expect men to fall apart. That's what society's programmed into them. That we'll chase, that we'll explain ourselves, that we'll panic when they pull away. But you didn't. You went ghost too. But not from pain, from power. You didn't disappear because you were weak. You withdrew because you were done bleeding for someone who vanished without respect. And that silence, it's not emptiness. It's a message she can't delete. She hears it in the quiet moments, when no one else is around, when the mask drops and the doubts creep in. She scrolls, she watches, she wonders. Why hasn't he reached out? Did he never care? Is he really over it? And those questions start doing damage, more damage than any argument ever could. Because you're not giving her the drama she thrives on, you're giving her the unknown. And the unknown always hits harder than closure. No contact isn't about revenge. It's about recognition. Recognition of your worth, your peace, your power. She thought you'd break, but you just broke free. If you've ever stayed quiet and watched someone fall apart behind a fake smile, hit that like button. Subscribe for more Stoic clarity. Turn on notifications so you never miss when we drop something real. And comment below. My silence speaks louder than her words. Now let's begin. Number 1. She'll fake it. You'll feel it. She's not going to show you the damage. She won't post about missing you. She won't admit the silence stings. Instead, she'll flex, she'll smile, she'll post thirst traps, group photos, night out stories, all curated to deliver one message. I'm fine without you. But that's the show. That's what people do when they're trying to outrun their own thoughts. And while she fakes it for the world, you feel the shift. Not because you're watching her every move, not because you're obsessing, but because you've grown still enough to recognize when someone is projecting. You can feel the insecurity behind the performance. That sudden change in her online behavior. That's not confidence. That's a signal. The louder she pretends, the more silence she's trying to drown. And the longer your silence holds, the harder it gets for her to keep the mask on. She's not healed, she's hiding. And what she's hiding from is the version of you she never saw coming, the one who didn't break, didn't chase, didn't even flinch. That version stings because she thought she had you figured out. She thought she could control the emotional tone. She expected heartbreak, but you gave her detachment and that confusion. That's where the obsession begins. Because here's the dark truth. People don't miss you when you text. They miss you when you stop. They don't regret you when you chase. They regret you when you disappear with purpose. Your silence isn't a void. It's a mirror, and every day she performs for others, she's really trying to convince herself she made the right choice. But the more she fakes it, the more she feels it. Deep down, quietly, alone. Number 2. Your absence becomes the obsession. You were once everywhere in her life, like background music she'd gotten used to. You filled the gaps before she ever had to notice them. Texts, calls, sweet words, presence, constant, predictable, familiar. But then you stopped, quietly. No scene, no blame, no grand announcement. You stepped out of the spotlight, and that was the beginning of something she didn't expect. The void. Because here's a brutal truth. Most men don't want to admit Women don't obsess over the man who's always there. They obsess over the one who disappears with purpose. When you're always available, your presence loses weight. You become wallpaper, reliable, supportive, but invisible. And she'll never say it, but it numbs her curiosity, dulls her desire. There's no friction, no contrast, no spark. But when your presence vanishes and you do it with calm, that stillness starts echoing in her mind. At first, she pretends she doesn't notice. Maybe she shrugs it off, scrolls through her feed, talks to her friends, but something doesn't sit right. You're not reacting, you're not reaching, you're not chasing, and the silence gets louder. Because in that silence, she's alone with her own thoughts, and those are rarely kind. She remembers your calm voice, your stability, the energy you brought into her life, and now that it's gone, it burns a little. Because absence isn't neutral, it's felt. It highlights what used to be, and the fact that it's no longer there triggers obsession. This is where Stoicism shows its hand. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it's not right, don't do it. If it's not true, don't say it." You didn't fake an exit to manipulate her. You simply walked away because it aligned with your peace. And that integrity, that quiet withdrawal, carries weight. Her mind starts asking questions. Why did he stop reaching out? Did he find someone better? Did I push him away? What if I was wrong? The absence creates space for all the questions you never had to ask. And now, she's the one seeking answers. This is the reverse effect most men never experience because they cave too early. They text just to check in. They fold under the discomfort of silence. They crave validation instead of becoming it. But not you. You've become scarce, and scarcity drives value. She might post thirst traps, act unbothered, or flaunt her freedom. But beneath all of it, there's static. She's not used to the gap you've left. She's not used to not being pursued. And the longer the silence stretches, the more that gap grows into obsession. She replays your last words. She remembers the way you looked at her. She wonders if your silence is indifference or strength. Here's the twist: your absence becomes a mirror. It reflects back to her everything she didn't see when you were around, how you supported her, how you gave without keeping score, how your energy held her together more than she realized. She may never tell you any of this, but she'll feel it, and she'll feel it deep. That's why silence is power, not the cold, bitter kind, but the calm, detached confidence of a man who knows he doesn't need to chase what's already lost. And in that calm, you become magnetic. Because obsession isn't born from pressure, it's born from presence, followed by absence. You didn't ghost her, you grew out of her reach. And that difference, that's everything. So hold the frame. Let her feel the cost of your absence. Let her curiosity grow without feeding it. Because when a man removes his energy with intention, a woman's imagination does the rest. And once her imagination is hooked, the obsession begins. Drop a comment. I know my worth. And don't go anywhere, because in the next part, I'll show you why the one who stays silent the longest always wins the power shift. Number 3. She expected you to break first. She didn't leave thinking you'd be strong. She walked away expecting one thing: that you'd fall apart first. That you'd text, call, beg. That you'd crack under the weight of silence, because that's what most guys do. They panic. They reach. They lose all their composure the moment attention is withdrawn. And she knows it. That's why when she pulled back emotionally, physically, socially, she was silently betting on your weakness. She didn't say it, but the game was already in motion. The moment she went cold, she assumed you'd melt. But here's where things start to twist. You didn't break. You didn't chase. You didn't fill the silence with explanations or questions or "I miss yous." You stayed still. And that stillness, it wasn't passive. It was powerful. Because for the first time she met a man who didn't fall into her pattern. You see, it's not just that she expected you to break, it's that she needed it. She needed confirmation that she still had power, that she could hurt you and still be chosen, that even in withdrawal, you'd stay orbiting. That's not love. That's ego. That's validation dressed up as vulnerability. And when you didn't play along, when you held the frame and refused to give her the reaction she was fishing for, you shattered her expectation. That's where the real reversal begins. Because silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. It's signal. It tells her everything words never could. That you don't need her to be whole. That your peace isn't negotiable. That her distance doesn't define your direction. Most men crumble because they mistake discomfort for urgency. They feel anxious when ignored, and they assume that means act now. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. Discomfort is not danger. It's a test. And when you learn to sit with it, when you stop trying to soothe it with her attention, you become untouchable. She notices. At first, she brushes it off. Thinks maybe you're just stubborn. Thinks maybe you're playing a game. But the days pass. Still no message. No apology. No weakness. Now she starts to wonder. Did he care at all? Has he moved on? Why isn't he chasing me like everyone else did? That's when the game flips. Because the person who holds the emotional frame, the one who controls their responses, not reacts to hers, holds the power. She wanted to break you first so she didn't have to feel her own collapse. But when you didn't break, she had to confront something worse. Her own reflection. Her choices. Her silence. Her ego. Her pattern of pushing good men away just to feel in control. And now, you're no longer the one suffering. You're the mirror. You're the proof that a man can walk away and still stand tall. That detachment doesn't mean indifference, it means discipline. And that kind of strength, it lingers in her mind. It replays at night. It unsettles her in silence. Because it wasn't supposed to go this way. You were supposed to cave, to fold, to become the man she could discard without consequence. Instead, you became the man she can't shake. And that's what happens when you stay grounded while everything around you pulls for your reaction. Drop a comment. I never break first. What comes next? Let's just say, the silence is starting to speak for you. Number 4. You refused to feed her ego. She didn't leave for closure. She didn't pull away to reflect. She pulled back to be chased. It wasn't about the breakup. It was about the attention after it. And most guys fall right into the trap. They try to fix things. They over-apologize. They beg. They send long texts explaining their worth. All of it fuel for her ego. Because whether she says it or not, part of her wants to know she still has you. That even after walking away, you're still orbiting, still checking, still emotionally available. But you refused. You didn't send the text, didn't double tap her story, didn't slide into her DM with a "just thinking about you." That silence, it starved the ego, and that's what rattled her, because she didn't want love. Not really. She wanted a mirror. Someone to reflect her value back to her when she felt unsure. Someone to confirm she was still wanted, still missed, still in control. Your reaction, a lack of it, shook that foundation. And now she's stuck with a question she didn't expect to ask. Why isn't he chasing me? See, when you feed the ego, you reward bad behavior. You reinforce the idea that she can pull away and still be worshipped. But when you starve it, when you remove your validation, when you detach with peace, you shift the dynamic completely. She starts to spiral, not out of love, but out of confusion, because you're not playing the role she cast you in. The guy who stays in love with her ghost. The guy who fights for a connection she's already walked away from. You chose something she didn't expect. Self-respect. And that decision echoes louder than 1,000 words. Now every silent day becomes a message. Every non-response becomes a boundary. Every inch of distance becomes power. Because the more ego-driven her move was, the more threatening your silence becomes. But here's where most men fail. They think silence is enough. It's not. Silence has to be backed by presence, by discipline, by the internal shift from wanting her validation to not needing it at all. That's where Stoicism comes in. You're not cold. You're clear. You're not bitter. You're better. You're not doing this to manipulate. You're doing it to protect your peace. Because you finally understand this. Feeding her ego might win her attention, but it'll cost you your identity. And the moment you make her approval your currency, you lose your freedom. You become emotionally broke. So instead, you stand still. Not angry. Not vindictive. Just still. And that stillness sends a message louder than any emotional outburst ever could. I'm not here to validate you. I'm here to value myself. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. That's the kind of energy women chase when they're tired of boys. That's the kind of silence that flips tables. That makes her replay your last words. That makes her wonder what she lost. Because no woman regrets losing the man who begged, but they always regret losing the one who didn't break. So next time you're tempted to reach out, to remind her of your worth, don't. Remind yourself instead. You're not here to be her emotional safety net. You're here to build something she can either respect or walk away from. Drop a comment. You don't feed ego. Now that her echo chamber's gone quiet, she's about to hear something even louder, her own regret. Number 5. Your peace creates her chaos. When a woman pulls away, she expects noise, emotions, drama, a reaction that tells her she still controls the atmosphere. But what she didn't expect was your calm. No angry texts, no desperate calls, no trying to prove anything, just silence, stillness, peace. And that peace, it doesn't feel peaceful to her. It feels loud. Because in a world where chaos is familiar, peace is unsettling, especially from a man she once thought she had figured out. You didn't beg. You didn't chase. You didn't spiral. You just stood. That stillness isn't passive. It's power, and she feels it. Deep. She may act like she doesn't notice, like she's moved on, like she's fine. But peace isn't invisible. It has weight, and when it's paired with masculine presence, it becomes undeniable. You didn't need to say, "I'm better," without the drama. You just lived it. You didn't post motivational quotes or drop cryptic captions. You simply let your absence speak louder than your presence ever did. And the more grounded you became, the more scattered she felt. See, when she was with you, part of her chaos was managed, not by your control, but by your calm, your discipline, your energy. And now, in your absence, she's left with hers. No balance, no polarity, just internal noise with no center. Because when a man stands firm in peace, he becomes the mirror she can't avoid. It reflects her impulsiveness, her emotional volatility, her inability to hold frame when things get uncomfortable. And it's not about blame. It's about contrast. You're not in competition with her chaos. You simply stopped feeding it. That's where Stoicism comes in. It's not about suppression. It's about transcendence. It's the decision to no longer hand your emotions over just because someone else lost control of theirs. That kind of peace isn't soft. It's sharp. It's the peace that comes from knowing you don't need to explain. You don't need to convince. You don't need to perform. You've already done the work. And now, your calm does the talking. But here's the twist. Her chaos wasn't always malicious. It was her way of testing safety, of checking your foundation, of seeing if you'd fall when she shook the ground. And you didn't. That's the moment things shifted. Because you didn't just survive the emotional turbulence. You thrived in it. You didn't silence your heart. You just stopped handing it over to someone who didn't know how to hold it. And now, as she sits with her own inner noise, Your peace starts to echo in places she thought she'd locked away. She remembers the stability, the grounding, the emotional gravity you brought to the table. And no, she won't say it. She'll post something vague. She'll act like she's glowing up. But inside, the silence is doing its work. Because peace doesn't scream, it doesn't beg, it doesn't chase. It simply exists, unbothered, unshaken, undeniable. And when that peace once came from a man like you, it's not easily replaced. She may find attention, she may find excitement, but she won't find calm. Not the kind that came from your presence, your restraint, your refusal to drown in someone else's emotional storm. So let her spiral. Let her mask it. Let her pretend she's fine. You already know the truth. And more importantly, you've made peace with it. Drop a comment. I choose calm. Because when you stop matching her chaos, you stop losing yourself. And that's when the real power begins. Number 6. Stillness speaks louder than words. You could have said something. You had every chance. You could have told her how unfair she was, how much it hurt, how she made you feel disposable, replaceable, invisible. But you didn't. You stayed still. Not because you were weak, but because you finally understood. Some messages don't need words. They need silence. Stillness isn't avoidance. It's control. It's the art of saying, I see what's happening, and I choose not to feed it. No. And when you do that, when you stop explaining, justifying, or begging to be understood, something powerful happens. You shift the entire dynamic. You stop playing on her emotional turf, and you anchor into your own. That stillness, it's unsettling for someone who expected chaos. It flips the script. She expected to see a man unravel, a man broken, a man desperate for closure. Instead, she saw a man who knew who he was, even when everything around him tried to shake it. You didn't flinch. You didn't chase. You didn't fill the silence just to break the tension. You held the tension, like a true Stoic. That's what they don't teach you in modern dating culture, that the most attractive move isn't always action. Sometimes it's restraint. Women aren't used to men being still. They're used to men reacting, caving, proving. But you didn't move. And that stillness started doing something her words never could. It made her feel, not just think, feel. Because silence gives space for the mind to wander. It forces reflection. It triggers doubt. She starts replaying your last moment. She wonders if she went too far. She checks your socials. She reads into your silence like it's a code she can't crack. And the more she tries to figure it out, the louder it gets. Stillness is never empty. It's loaded. It's presence without pressure. It's dominance without display. And here's what most men don't understand. When you use stillness right, it becomes unforgettable. She'll remember your silence long after she forgets the guys who sent 3-paragraph texts begging for another shot. Because you didn't argue for your value, you lived it. You let your absence carry more weight than presence ever could. And now, you've become a mystery, not a game, not a tactic, a man with depth, direction, and discipline. That kind of stillness is rare, and in a world of constant noise, it becomes magnetic. But let's be real, it's not easy. You'll want to break the silence just to feel something. You'll want to explain yourself just to ease the tension. You'll want to say, hey, I just want you to know. Don't. Every word you don't say becomes a statement. Every moment you remain still becomes a reminder that your worth doesn't come from her reaction. It comes from your alignment. And that's what Stoicism is really about. Not pretending you don't care, but caring in the right direction. Not investing energy in what's out of your control, but channeling it into becoming unshakable. So when she looks back, when she scrolls through old photos, when she hears your name, when she wonders if you ever cared, she won't remember what you said. She'll remember what you didn't. That silence will echo, louder than her pride, louder than her assumptions. louder than any message you could have sent. Because the man who can sit in stillness without losing himself is the man she'll never fully get over. Drop a comment. I speak through stillness. And remember, sometimes the loudest message is the one you never deliver. Number 7. Her mask can't hide her regret. She acts like she's fine. She puts on the red lipstick, posts the bikini photos, laughs louder, smiles bigger, and pretends she's finally free. But you can feel it. There's something off. Because it's not just her life she's trying to convince. She's trying to convince herself. See, regret doesn't always show up in tears. Sometimes it wears a smile, a fake one, the kind meant to spark a reaction out of you. And that's exactly what she wants. Your reaction. She expected your silence to fade. She expected the no contact to break. Because deep down, she counted on your weakness. She thought you'd fold. She thought you'd check in just once. She thought you'd peek at her stories, hit like on her post, even if accidentally. But instead, you disappeared. And now the silence is screaming louder than anything you could have said. Stoicism teaches us this. Master yourself, because when you stop reacting, the world starts revealing itself. And in her case, that revelation is brutal. The man who once lit up her phone with attention, who used to validate her beauty, her moods, her mood swings, is now a ghost. Not bitter, not angry, just absent. And absence has weight, especially when it comes from someone she was sure she had wrapped around her finger. She wears the mask because she's not ready to admit the truth. She thought you'd need her more than she needed you. But now, your silence has flipped the dynamic. You no longer orbit her emotions. She orbits your mystery. And don't mistake that new guy she's parading around for a replacement. He's a prop, a performance. Someone to make you feel like she's moved on. But she hasn't. Because if she had, she wouldn't care whether or not you noticed. Let's get real. If a woman is really over you, she's not thinking about proving it. She's just living. But when she goes out of her way to post, pose, and provoke, it's not about healing. It's about hurting you. Or at least trying to. And when that doesn't work, when your silence doesn't crack, when your energy doesn't chase, that's when the mask slips. She'll start remembering not what you said, but what you didn't say. She'll recall your restraint, your stillness, your emotional discipline. Because no one forgets the person who walked away without turning it into a scene. That's power. Women don't regret losing men who exploded. They regret losing men who leveled up. Silently, privately, with no desire for revenge, no effort to win her back. She'll wonder who you're with now, if you still think about her, if she even mattered, and the silence won't answer her. That's the torment. That's what no mask can hide. Because when she finally realizes you're not waiting for her anymore, not watching, not longing, not hoping, that's when the regret sinks in. And here's the kicker. She won't show it. She'll still post like she's glowing, still throw shade in her stories, still laugh with that exaggerated, look what you lost vibe. But behind it, she's checking your page. She's wondering why you've gone cold. She's wondering when it became so easy for you to be unavailable. That's the paradox of emotional strength. It doesn't shout, it whispers. And the whisper echoes in places her pride can't reach. So don't chase validation. Don't decode her updates. Don't ask your mutuals about her. Stay grounded. Stay focused. Stay silent. Because her mask, it's slipping. And behind it is a woman trying to cope with the fact that she lost a man who refused to crawl back. And you've become the man who doesn't flinch when tested. Drop a comment. I stay grounded and don't go anywhere. What I'm about to share next will show you how she starts chasing the man she thought she could ignore. Number 8. You became scarce, and scarcity hurts. She didn't expect to miss you. Not really. She thought you'd linger, thought you'd be there, like always waiting, checking, reacting. Because that's what men usually do when they get left behind. They hover, They post. They try to stay relevant in her world, even after she's walked away from his. But you didn't. You didn't try to stay visible. You didn't try to prove anything. You disappeared quietly. And that's when it started to hurt. Because women don't feel your absence until they can't sense your energy anymore. Until they notice something subtle but sharp. You're not accessible like before. Your attention? No longer free. Your presence? No longer guaranteed. That shift from abundance to scarcity is brutal. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it's powerful. Because it breaks the illusion that you'll always be there. And the second she feels that, she starts looking for you in places you no longer show up. Your name in her notifications. Gone. Your view on her story. Not there. Your voice, your texts, that steady thread of validation she could rely on. Cut off. And what replaces it is a silence she didn't prepare for. See, scarcity isn't about playing games. It's about pulling your energy back into yourself. It's about realizing that what you give has value and shouldn't be handed out just because she used to have it. When you were always available, she never had to question. Now that you're scarce, every question comes rushing in. Did he move on? Does he even care anymore? Was I wrong to push him away? She won't say it, but she'll feel it. Because women don't crave what's easy. They crave what they can feel slipping. It's basic psychology. We value what's rare. And emotional availability, especially from a grounded man, is rare. You used to give it freely. Now, it has to be earned. That's where the power is. You didn't become bitter. You became distant. Not out of pettiness, but out of self-respect. And that's the part she didn't calculate for. She thought you'd hurt, not heal. She thought you'd break, not rebuild. She thought she could control your presence like a light switch. But you left the room. You didn't slam the door. You just stopped showing up. And that absence, it's louder than any speech you could have given. Because now she's starting to notice all the small ways your presence used to anchor her. Your calm, your strength, your attention. Now that it's gone, there's a void. And no matter how many new faces she entertains, none of them feel like yours. Because yours was rooted. Yours was intentional. Yours had weight. That's the thing about becoming scarce. It's not about making her chase. It's about showing her what she lost when she thought you'd always be around. And here's what Stoicism teaches us. You don't disappear to punish. You disappear to preserve, to protect your time, to guard your peace, to remind yourself that your presence is a gift, not a given. So you didn't announce your exit. You didn't post a breakup quote. You just faded. And in that fading, you became the one thing no woman can ever fully forget. The man she once had and now can't reach. That's the wound ego can't heal. Because it wasn't rejection. It was replacement. And not by another woman. By your own growth. Drop a comment. I became scarce. Because when you stop making yourself available to those who take you for granted, you stop being taken for granted altogether. And that hurts more than silence ever could. Number 9. She remembers what you don't repeat. She'll pretend she's fine. She'll post that selfie. She'll throw out the caption that looks like confidence but smells like regret. And all the while, one thing keeps repeating in her mind. Not what you said, not what you did, but what you never did again. See, here's the truth no one tells you. When a man stops repeating himself, he becomes unforgettable. Because what used to be normal, your good morning texts, your check-ins, your way of always being emotionally available suddenly vanishes. And in that silence, she starts remembering. Not because you reminded her, but because you didn't. You didn't circle back. You didn't try again. You didn't say, let's talk. And that's what cuts deeper than any speech ever could. Women remember consistency, but they feel absence. She remembers how you showed up for her without needing to be asked. How you brought peace to her chaos. How you gave your energy without demands. But now that it's gone, Now that you don't repeat the same patterns most men fall into, that void becomes a mirror. It reflects her choices. It reflects what she walked away from. And it forces her to ask a question that no woman enjoys confronting. Did I lose him? Or did he finally see me clearly? That's the beauty of Stoicism. You don't announce your evolution. You let your silence say it for you. Stillness is power. But non-repetition? That's legacy. Because repetition is easy. It's emotional autopilot. You keep giving, keep explaining, keep chasing, hoping they'll finally see your worth. But when you stop repeating, you reclaim your energy. You say, that version of me no longer exists. And trust me, that hits hard. Because she never thought you'd change the pattern. She thought she could always come back. She thought you'd always be open. She was banking on your predictability. But now, you've become an unknown. And nothing messes with a woman's emotions more than the version of you she can't read anymore. You're not being cruel. You're being clear. And your clarity, it's more powerful than any emotional reaction. Because you've learned something vital. People value what they can no longer count on. When your love, your presence, your words were always on repeat, they were background noise. Now that it's gone, it's an echo. And echoes stick. Especially when they're tied to a man who leveled up quietly, a man who replaced reaction with reason, a man who stopped needing to be understood because he finally understood himself. And maybe she won't say it. Maybe she won't text you that long message explaining how much she thinks about you. But it doesn't matter, because she does think about you, often, and not because of what you gave her, but because of what you stopped giving. You were the source. She assumed you'd stay. You didn't. Now every man who comes after you has to compete with your silence. And no one wins against a man who mastered detachment with class. So the next time you wonder if she still thinks about you, don't look at her actions. Look at what she's trying to copy. She's trying to recreate the calm you carried, the peace you embodied, the masculinity you didn't need to perform. But she can't. Because you didn't just stop repeating old patterns, you became the man who no longer fits inside them. Drop a comment. I don't repeat myself. And when she remembers you, she won't remember the words. She'll remember the silence that replaced them. And that silence will say everything. Number 10. No contact isn't a game. It's growth. Let's make something clear. No contact isn't about revenge. It's not some trick to make her miss you. It's not manipulation or silence as punishment. It's evolution. And the moment you start seeing it that way, everything changes. Because when a man pulls back just to trigger a reaction, he's still controlled by her, still waiting on her move, still tethered to her validation. That's not strength. That's desperation in disguise. But when a man pulls back to find his center, to rebuild, to refocus, to remember who he is without her, that's when no contact becomes real. It's not a waiting room, it's a forge. And it hurts, because silence isn't easy. Because walking away from someone you still think about every day takes discipline most men never develop. But here's the truth Stoicism teaches us. You cannot grow in the same space where you were shrinking. No contact gives you distance, and distance gives you clarity. Suddenly, you're no longer zoomed in on her every mood, her every post, her every move. You step back, and for the first time in a long time, you see yourself. You see how much you gave, how much you tolerated, how little you asked for in return. And maybe that realization stings, but it also frees you. Because no contact isn't just about removing her. It's about reclaiming you, your thoughts, your routine, your presence, all the things you gave up while hoping she'd just get it. Now you get it. You see that silence isn't passive. It's active. It's you refusing to bleed where you're not being treated. It's you refusing to explain what should have already been understood. It's you saying, I won't beg for what's mine anymore. Growth isn't always loud. Sometimes it's silent, subtle, almost invisible. but it shows up in how you walk, how you talk, how you no longer overthink every interaction. That's what she'll feel, not the silence, the shift. The way your energy is no longer orbiting around hers. The way your peace now comes from within, not from her replies. And the crazy thing, that's when she usually comes back. When she can't feel you trying anymore. When she realizes she's not the center of your universe. When she sees that the man she used to influence no longer flinches. But here's the final lesson. You're not doing no contact to get her back. You're doing it so you don't lose yourself again. If she returns and you're still standing in your peace, you'll see things differently. You'll see her clearly. And most of all, you'll see you. Not the you who was anxious. Not the you who was chasing. But the version of you who finally stopped trying to be chosen and started choosing himself. That's what this has been about all along. No contact isn't a cold shoulder. It's a warm return to who you really are. It's not petty. It's powerful. It's not revenge. It's revelation. Because the man who walks away for attention comes back empty. But the man who walks away for growth comes back unrecognizable. So let her wonder. Let her assume you've got nothing to prove anymore. Because silence didn't break you. It built you. So now you know your silence isn't weakness. It's strength refined. It's power that doesn't need to shout. And it's the kind of presence that lingers, even when you're gone. If this message hit you where it matters, subscribe to the channel. We drop real talk like this every single day. No fluff, no fake alpha advice. Just hard truth, stoic discipline, and psychological clarity. And if you're ready to take this deeper, join the Stoic Brotherhood. Inside, we go beyond the screen. Real lessons, real growth. No contact, emotional mastery. We live it. Thanks for spending your time here. Respect to the men who stay silent, stay grounded, and stay powerful. See you tomorrow.